My stepfather kicked me out at 16 for not being his real son. Now he needs my kidney to live. I was eating breakfast when my phone started buzzing across the kitchen counter. The screen showed a number I had blocked 8 years ago. My fork froze halfway to my mouth and eggs dropped back onto the plate. The phone kept vibrating and sliding toward the edge of the granite. I grabbed it before it fell, and my thumb hovered over the decline button. Then a voicemail notification popped up and my chest tightened. I pressed play and held the phone against my ear with a shaking hand. My mother's voice came through scratchy and desperate. She was crying so hard I could barely understand the words. Something about Richard being sick and needing surgery. My coffee mug slipped from my other hand and shattered against the tile floor. Brown liquid splashed across my bare feet, and I jumped backward into the refrigerator. The voicemail kept playing while I stood there dripping coffee onto the white tile. I played the message 3 more times and wrote down the hospital name on a napkin. My hands were trembling so badly my handwriting looked like a child's scribbles. Richard needed a kidney transplant within 6 months or he would die. The family had all been tested and nobody was a match. My half-sister had called my mother begging for my contact information. I crumpled the napkin and threw it across the kitchen. It bounced off the window and landed in the sink. My phone buzzed again with a text from a number I didn't recognize. The message contained hospital documents and blood type information. They had somehow gotten my medical records from somewhere. I scrolled through the attachments and my stomach dropped to my knees. Another text arrived with a photo of Richard hooked up to dialysis machines. His skin looked yellow and his eyes were sunken into his skull. I dropped the phone onto the counter and gripped the edge until my knuckles turned white. I always assumed Richard would never want anything from me again. The night he kicked me out was burned into my memory like a scar. He had stood in the doorway of my bedroom with my birth certificate in his hand. I was sitting on my bed doing homework when he threw the paper at my face. The document fluttered down and landed on my algebra textbook. He had found it while cleaning out my mother's filing cabinet. My real father's name was right there in black ink for anyone to see. My mother had lied to him for 16 years about who I really was. Richard grabbed my backpack and started shoving my clothes inside. I tried to hold onto my desk chair, but he yanked me up by my collar. He dragged me down the hallway while my mother screamed from the kitchen. My sneakers squeaked against the hardwood as I tried to find my footing. The front door opened and cold November air hit my face. He threw the backpack at my chest and it knocked the wind out of me. I lived in my car for 3 months after that night. I showered at the gym and ate from food banks until I graduated high school. My mother called once and I could hear Richard yelling in the background. She whispered that she was sorry. I hung up and threw my phone against the dashboard. The screen cracked, but I didn't care anymore. I worked 3 jobs through community college and transferred to State University. I built a life without any of them watching or helping. Now they needed me to cut open my body and give a piece of myself to the man who threw me away. I pulled up Richard's Facebook profile and scrolled through his recent posts. He had written about his diagnosis and asked for prayers. The comments were full of family members saying they wished they could help. Not one of them mentioned me or asked where I was. I slammed my laptop shut and the sound echoed through my empty apartment. My phone rang again, and this time I answered without thinking. My half-sister was sobbing on the other end of the line. She begged me to come to the hospital and get tested. I told her I already knew I was a match because they had stolen my records. She went quiet and I could hear machines beeping in the background. Richard's voice came through weak and raspy. He said my name for the first time in 8 years. I gripped the phone so hard the case started cracking. He asked me to help him live. I walked to my window and stared down at the street 12 floors below. Cars honked and people rushed by without knowing my world was collapsing. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and felt my breath fog up the window. My finger found the end call button and I held it there. The line went dead and I watched the screen go black. Richard threw me out like garbage when he discovered I wasn't his blood. He let me sleep in parking lots and eat from dumpsters at 16 years old. He never once checked if I was alive or dead during the past 8 years. Now his failing kidneys had made him desperate enough to find the boy he discarded. I looked at the blocked caller list on my phone and saw dozens of attempts. My mother had tried reaching me for weeks before I finally heard the voicemail. I deleted every message without reading or listening to them. I opened my contacts and found my half-sister's new number. My thumb typed out 2 words and hit send. The message delivered with a soft whoosh sound. I set the phone face down on my coffee table and walked to my bedroom. The hospital document sat in my trash folder waiting to be permanently deleted. I pressed the empty trash button and watched the files disappear. My laptop closed with a click and I slid it into my desk drawer. I pulled on my running shoes and tied them tight. The front door locked behind me and I jogged down 12 flights of stairs. The street noise swallowed me whole as I started running and didn't look back.